I just want to explain how, since I discovered the Simpleology 101, how that transformed my life.
I never thought I could get so much out of just a simple daily habit.
I really love this program. I can see how this is going to help me to get to the next level in my business.
What I'm grateful for is that Simpleology helped me so much to face distraction and keep my focus so that I can reach my goals.
I've just completed the training and I now have a 5 or 10 minute ritual every morning where I can clearly map out the day. I know exactly what I need to achieve.
I was looking for a solution just to help me to get back on track. One day I found the Simpleology 101 and wow, it was amazing. In just a couple weeks, apply the system, I already start to see some change and
I've been using Simpleology since 2007. It's a long story, however, I never tire of telling it.
So I just applied the system of the Simpleology, just keep me on track.
My experience so far with Simpleology has been terrific. My productivity, the clarity, the focus has been unreal.
And I feel that the white belt training has helped me in a lot of areas, especially in terms of productivity, as well as being more disciplined in finishing the tasks that I have on hand.
And I started using Simpleology, and I feel that I finally have one central place to dump all my ideas and all my to-dos throughout the day with the Dreamcatcher. Makes planning the following day so much easier when you have everything you need already captured in one spot.
I'd just like to congratulate the Simpleology team for the Simpleology process. It's made an amazing improvement to my daily productivity.
Lila Brada, the former Mr. Universe, just called me and he said, Martin, you're the winner. And so it's amazing in a year and a half what I accomplished, just apply the system. So I just want to say a big thank you for the Simpleology.
I've been doing less, but I look around at every aspect of my life. I look at how clean things have gotten around me. Look at, the time I actually get to have conversations with people and feel like I don't have to be distracted by anything else. I feel like I have more time, and I've been very impressed with what I've been able to learn and do.
Hi, just a quick word about the Simpleology and the white belt training. What I've found is that having this available as a tool has increased my ability to keep things from falling between the cracks because I've got a way to store things. So it's extremely helpful.
An idea comes and you jot it in your Dreamcatcher. It sort of gives you a mental lift.
That this is an incredible tool to use.
So far, I'm seeing quite a bit of change in my productivity, and I feel like I have more time to do the things I need to do.
This is what the Simpleology system gives you. Organize your day, get focused, and do what needs to be done.
But this thing is helping me to get back on the focused path, and I am enjoying it. I am enjoying it quite a bit.
So Simpleology was a game changer for me, especially this white belt program.
It's been worth every second.
To use Simpleology every day, and yeah, I'm starting to see a difference in my life,
And I'm actually getting things done.
It was as if someone out there knew that I was in a mess. There was chaos all about me.
I just earned my white belt today, and I'm really proud of that, actually. And honestly, the habit that I have now of logging in, of planning my day, has really helped me to exceed all the expectations that I had when I started this program.
Now I'm setting up a task list for the day that is clearly achievable. At the end of every day, I've got all the tasks done. And when I leave the office, I feel comfortable that I've had a productive day. And when I go back in the office in the morning, I know that I'm going to set myself up for success.
So I highly recommend everybody this process, and I'm going to share all this to my friends and family so they can do it too. And well, we can reach our goals, get to our ultimate life. So thanks a lot. We did it.
Practice symbology. By using symbology, I'm able to focus on things done that were important to me and not be consumed by what was happening in our world.
It's so a great program, really very helpful, and it's made a world of difference to my personal productivity.
We've got to recognize that the enemies of our success are overwhelm and procrastination. And, I believe that one of the only things that's really focusing for me on a personal level right now is a product, a piece of software that's really focused on productivity and the ability to kill procrastination and overwhelm. And that's a program called Simpleology. And I really believe that you do need Simpleology, to help you to, focus on what you really need to, succeed in any given day.
Hey, the Simpleology white belt training was absolutely awesome.
With Simpleology, I have learned to focus more on the tasks that I have at hand and to get rid of the clutter.
I just went through Simpleology white belt training. It's simple, repetitive process, but thank you. I've been getting the crap out of my life.
You should get really excited about what you're about to discover.
I have a tendency to get distracted a lot, so the dream catcher I thought was brilliant.
And, I can't recommend Simpleology high enough. And it's just been a fantastic tool for me.
It is something that is absolutely amazing technology. It was a brilliant idea.
I think my productivity has gone way up, and actually all my stress levels have decreased quite a bit as well. So,
yay, I just finished the white belt. I can't wait for the other belts and to see what else is available in Simpleology.
Before Simpleology, I was distracted constantly.
After getting my black belt, I've seen some phenomenal things coming my way, some phenomenal changes.
But when I use the Simpleology, it is better than my notes. So now I'm really addicted to the tools and I use it daily because then I can download from everything from my head and it's helped me keeping track.
But it really will help you focus. And I've read a few things in the library. They are absolutely awesome as well.
Why am I so committed and excited about Simpleology? And because the things I thought before were a negative were actually a positive.
Now, I'm working towards being so productive.
By using Simpleology and getting my white belt, I'm not only getting more jobs done, I'm getting the important jobs done that are moving my goals towards completion. I'm very pleased.
It just really magnifies your productivity in such a big way. I've never seen anything like it.
I've got so much more time to do all my creative projects.
So that cost is minimal when I consider all the time I'm getting back.
That day will be forever etched in my psyche. From that day to this, Simpleology is simply the best app on the whole planet.
All right, you guys, and we are live tonight. Oh, that is strange. So with just me on the camera here, I'm going to see if I can change the orientation of that. Let me see. Oh, that's not changing either. All right, I've got a new video set up here, so we're going to see. Hey, there we go. That looks a little better. May as well take advantage of this beautiful new backdrop we have here. I'm in a new setup. I'm feeling pretty amazing today. I just got back from the beach, as I always do every morning. For me, it's the morning. My buddy Ryan is out getting his dose of nature with his fam out in the Colorado mountains. And tonight we're going to talk about something really interesting. We're going to talk about vaccine marketing. Vaccine marketing. So what do I mean by this? It's pretty literal, actually. We're going to talk about how vaccines are marketed. Now, I'm not saying that the famous vaccines that people are talking about over the last several years were deliberately marketed. I'm not going to say that, okay? But I am going to say, if they were, would it be the case that maybe they were following some of the normal rules of marketing? Were they leveraging some marketing ideas when they did that? Let's dig into this and find out. But first, let me tell you a little story to let you know that I don't know. Again, I don't know if this is the case with the big famous vaccine, but I do know that vaccines are marketed. I mean, they're products, right? So if you want to sell a product, of course, you've got to follow certain rules of sales and marketing if you want to get an effect. So I'm going to tell you a story that I know firsthand about a particular vaccine that was marketed in a very interesting way. Now, wherever I go around the world, one of the first things I do before I go to a particular location is I make sure that I can sustain my healthy lifestyle wherever I go. So I want to make sure, can I get the food I want to eat? Can I get my feet on the ground in nature, preferably a beach? Can I watch the sunrise? Can I maintain my fitness? Now, at a I'm not going to say what country this was. I'm not going to say what vaccine this was, because if I give too many details, you could probably identify the specific person that I'm talking about. Probably not commonly known, but if somebody wanted to get this guy in trouble, they could. So I'm going to leave out some details here. So in this one particular country that I was traveling to, I went to a gym there. I got a membership at probably the fanciest gym in that area. And it's kind of cool because not only do you get great equipment, but you also get access to a lot of really, really interesting people. Now, I like to take a sauna. There's a lot of benefits to doing saunas regularly. You can look into that. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit. But when I was in the sauna, I got into a conversation with a guy, and it turns out he is the director of marketing for a specific product for a pretty big pharmaceutical company, one I'm sure you know, for a particular vaccine that they wanted to roll out in this country. Now, this vaccine did not have any legal competitors in this country, in this particular country. It was the only authorized vaccine for this particular malady that often afflicts people when they get older. This company had it on lock. Now, that country had a rule where the pharmaceutical companies can't just go out and put up a billboard. They can't advertise directly to people. They can't do paid ads, but the government can. Okay. So what he told me is basically they had to bribe government officials to say that, yes, they would launch a what you call a PSA campaign, a public service announcement campaign. And this public service announcement was basically telling people, hey, you don't have to suffer from this malady that you're very likely to suffer from when you get older, because there are treatments available. Go talk to your doctor. Now, what's really clever about this is that pharmaceutical company, again, had this whole thing on lock. There was only one vaccine that doctors in that country, and only one treatment that doctors in that country would be recommending for this specific thing. So you see how that works? They said the government advertised to the people saying, hey, we're just concerned about you. We're looking out for your well-being. Go talk to your doctor, right? And then when you go talk to the doctor, they've got it all set up so that the doctors are all going to recommend this. Now, you can look into how companies have gotten around the incentive system. So they're not allowed to incentivize doctors directly, like for per units sold. They're not allowed to advertise directly, but they can pretty much get the same effect by doing what I just told you. Okay, so you don't have to take my word for that. You can look into this on your own and find out, hey, does this kind of thing happen? All right. So again, I'm not asking you to believe anything I say. I'm going to throw ideas out at you that I think might be interesting and useful for you to consider, and then go do your own testing. So with marketing, I will give people ideas on things that I think maybe will work. I can't say go do this and this will work. Nobody can know that. If anybody telling you how to run your business tells you, hey, go do this, this, and this, and I guarantee you're going to get this result. Well, they can guarantee that, like for me, if I consult with somebody in certain cases, I might say, hey, we will get you a result, or you can ask for a refund. But I can't say you will get this result because I'm not psychic. Okay. So when people tell you that kind of thing, your radar should be going up a little bit. If they're giving you a guarantee about a result, what's the condition of that guarantee? Are you telling me that, hey, you pay me money and I guarantee you get a result? That's a little bit dodgy. But if they say, hey, I don't know whether or not you're going to get a result, pay me money. If you don't, we're happy to give you your money back or work with you until you get the result. Now, if you do that kind of thing, you want to be pretty wise about who you do business with. We don't all have the luxury of being able to work with government agencies that are able to control all of the channels of communication and all of the channels of supply. Not all of us have that luxury, okay? But a lot of what I'm going to lay out here can be applicable to you, if you think about it. So I want to show you guys one of my, I'm going to show you two copywriting formulas, and we're going to talk about the vaccine that everybody's talking about. I'm not going to say the C word, but everybody knows what I'm talking about here. And I'm not saying that any companies were involved in any kind of deliberate marketing or deliberate planning, but if they were, would these rules still apply? Okay, now if you think, all right, Mark may be going down some conspiracy rabbit hole, I'm not going to go down there. Okay, you don't have to, because as a business owner, you can just learn the lesson and benefit from it, and say maybe you're one of these people who are like, hey, trust the government, trust the companies, trust the science. Go get the vaccine. You're a bad person if you don't. Blah blah blah. Okay, if that's you, cool. All right. Put on the tinfoil hat, conspiracy theorist hat for a minute, and ask yourself, okay, if I look at it through that lens, does this make sense? Because by doing that, you will learn how these rules could be applied, and how, in fact, whatever you believe about what the intentions of the people behind the vaccines were, whether it's like trust the science or I'm going to kind of question things and do my own research, doesn't matter, right? Because you can see the principles play out in real time, whatever you believe the intentions were. Okay. So I know some of you guys watching this are going to be emotionally triggered by this one way or the other. Okay, fine, whatever. I don't have any control over that. My job is to teach you new ways to think, new ways to see things. And hopefully you will see how some of these copywriting formulas actually played out whatever the intentions were. So let's look at the first one here. The first one is one you probably know. If you have studied copywriting at all, it might even be one of the first ones you learn. The classic one is AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action. Attention, interest, desire, action. So I want to ask for some interaction with the tribe here. Okay, so if we were to apply this formula to that particular campaign, was there something going on that got attention? Was that involved? And go ahead and type your message, your thoughts in the comments, guys, if you want. We've got some pretty funny comments coming in here. I'm going to share some, and maybe we'll not share others. And by the way, if you guys are commenting on Facebook or YouTube, I can throw your comments up on the screen. If you're watching on any of those platforms, if you're watching inside the Simpleology portal, I can see your comments, but won't be able to just directly transfer your comment to the screen. So I just want to ask everybody as a mental exercise. So what was going on to get everybody's attention? Well, you'll notice that there was kind of a slow drip campaign going on there for a while. They started talking about rumors of, hey, there's this thing going on in China. Now, the interesting thing about this is that was not new. We had bird flu, we had H1N, we had all of these different cases of like, hey, maybe there's a viral scare, and people had seen this before. So it wasn't really a new thing. And when people first started hearing about this, it's kind of easy to tune it out and to go, hey, I've heard this before. They've talked about about virus scares before, about pandemic scares before. Maybe I don't have to worry about this. Now, that was going on for a couple months with this particular, I'm not going to say the C word again, right? But that was going on for a while. It was going on for a while. And then there was a point where the concern started ramping up. It started looking a little bit unusual. It was like, hey, wait a minute. Maybe this is a little bit more than they talked about before, because Trump started talking about doing a travel ban for people coming from China. And then there was a big political kerfuffle about it. If you remember, Nancy Pelosi went to Chinatown in San Francisco and said, hey, I'm in Chinatown. I recommend everybody go to Chinatown. This travel ban is a dumb idea. I'll let you, think about, who was right or wrong there. It doesn't really matter, right? What matters is that now we've escalated the amount of attention that we're getting, right? So it went from, hey, here's something maybe you've heard before, to, oh, this is interesting. The politicians are talking about this and fighting about it. Now there's more attention. And people who were politically engaged for Trump, against Trump, it didn't matter whether you were for or against Trump. You were still having the conversation, right? You were involved in some level in the attention-getting process. And I'm not saying you were a good person, a bad person, or anything for getting involved in that conversation. I was involved in the conversation, even though I was kind of, asking, what's going on here while all this was happening. But I was also involved in amplifying the amount of attention that people were putting on this particular issue. And you didn't even have to really care about whether or not people heard about the virus. You could have been just politically engaged, and you were amplifying the amount of attention that people were giving to this particular topic. All right. And then it started to escalate a little bit more. If they didn't have your attention then, they probably started getting your attention when they started locking things down. I remember I was in, I believe, Singapore. I was living in Phuket, Thailand at the time. And I went to Singapore to go do an event. And you can't travel directly from Singapore to Phuket. I had to go to Kuala Lumpur, then to Bangkok, and then to Phuket. And then I noticed all of a sudden the vibe around this whole thing had shifted. People were starting to talk about it a little bit differently. And then people started getting a little bit nervous. Everybody started paying attention to this. And then when I walked into the airports, in the Singapore airport, suddenly there were these signs up in English that said English and Chinese and a few other languages, social distancing, 6 feet, it's the new norm. And I was like, huh, that's kind of weird. Went into Kuala Lumpur, same signs, more or less, the same message, social distancing. It's the new normal. Bangkok, same thing. Phuket, same thing. Huh. I'll let you make of that what you will, but it certainly had my attention. It had any international traveler's attention, and it had the attention of people who were not necessarily traveling internationally because they were hearing the stories about this. Oh, things are changing, rules are changing. We've got to start changing the way we behave. Now, let's go to interest. So maybe they have your attention, but you're like, I don't know whether or not I really care about this. Now, before I talk about interest, let's see. I'm going to see some of the interesting comments that we have here. So Nicholas Roy says, attention was fear-mongering. It was a MK Ultra operation. I'm not going to say that. You can come up with whatever conclusion you want. We've got Aliza here that says, having been on the inside of various aspects of biopharma for 4 decades, what you are saying is correct. Certainly about a single vaccine and the first and only vaccine that is available winning all the business. As a model, being first and loud about it is what will get the most business. Being first for anything important will get people's attention. Before the thing is produced, papers can be written about the concept of the new thing, which softens the market to receive the new thing, especially as buzz starts to spread in anticipation of the concretion of the new thing. That's the beginning. That's a very astute set of observations and comment. And thank you for, as somebody inside that industry for talking about that. That's somebody from inside the Simpleology portal, by the way, saying that. That's one of our business class members inside Simpleology. And by the way, if you guys are not using Simpleology, you can go to www.simpleology.com and you can take a quiz there that will determine your productivity type. And we're going to give you a solution for that. Go do that on your own. Let's get back to the 4-step formula here. Attention, interest, desire, action. They may have had your attention, but did they have your interest? Well, how did they get your interest to go up? Well, this thing could be deadly, right? That's when they started talking about that. Now, there were a lot of people out there saying, hey, this is a lot, the death rate is much higher than a standard influenza. It's, we don't know what we're dealing with here. Your interest was raised by adding a component of fear. And then your interest was raised even more when they were talking about the fact that, hey, this isn't just you need to be concerned about. You need to be concerned about grandma, okay? Because if you go transmit the virus to grandma, you might get grandma sick. Now, that's something that, that's one of the things that wherever you land on this thing, like unequivocally, it's like, hey, that's a really good idea. The elderly folks have immune systems that are going to be a little more compromised than the average person. So let's go ahead and be concerned about them and not expose them to it. I don't think anybody had much of a problem with that, but just putting this into the formula, it raised your interest level, did it not? Now, when the vaccines came out, we already had attention, we already had interest, because you might die, grandma might die. Now, does that necessarily make you want to go get the shot yourself? Well, for some people, yes. Some people are like, hey, I've heard all the experts on TV, all the official people are saying that this is what you need to do. I'm going to trust them. I'm going to trust the science. I'm going to trust all of the authority figures. I'm going to trust the experts. Some people were like, well, I don't know. I don't know. This sounds like it's new technology. We can argue as to whether or not the mRNA vaccines were in fact new. Some people were saying, well, they were studying it for a couple decades, even though they hadn't used any specific human applications in this way. it's still been studied. Some people were like, well, you're holding this to a different standard, right? Because don't you need to test this in humans? Well, they did some testing, but less than you would normally get for an actual vaccine, because I don't think you can really call these vaccines, right? It's not what you would normally call a vaccine. It's not a weakened form of a pathogen. It's something that uses mRNA technology. It's a pretty different mechanism. Some people may not have had desire to go get that treatment because they didn't trust it. And maybe they just full stop don't trust authority figures. I'm kind of one of these, I don't full stop trust authority figures. I'm not saying I know better than somebody who has studied something for decades. I certainly, I have many character flaws, but that kind of hubris is probably not one of them. But I do think that there are cases of people who are wearing the banner of authority, who are experts in fact, but are not necessarily using that expertise in a wholesome way. We know a lot of cases of bribery in pharma where people have been paid to create studies that create certain outcomes. We know that there are scientists who have in fact muddled with or dismissed certain forms of evidence. We know that a lot of that happens, right? As a guy who used to work in the intelligence community and has worked directly with a lot of companies for different marketing campaigns for various purposes, I've worked with all sorts of different outfits in different contexts to guide people in how to make their marketing more effective. And I do know that there is a lot of that kind of thing going on in and out of the business world. It happens in business. It happens in academia. If you didn't see what happened with the presidents of Harvard and Stanford in the last couple of years, look into that if you want to see how high that kind of thing can go. And, we know that with big tobacco and with big pharma, there have been cases of people just straight out lying to Congress and hiding evidence and doing things for profit that maybe they shouldn't be doing. Okay. I don't think anybody out there is going to deny that kind of thing happens. Hopefully you're not naive enough to think that never happens, right? I would say, if you think that, dig into it a little bit. It's not hard to discover from unequivocal sources that kind of thing not only has gone on in the past, but has gone on in recent history. So I wouldn't fault anybody for questioning. So how do you get the desire up when you got folks out there like me who are kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to trust this whole thing. I don't know if I need to go get that vaccine. I don't know if I need to do what these people are telling me to do. Well, they ramped up your desire more when they told you that, quote unquote, if you get the shot, you won't die. That was, I believe, one of our presidents said that. I know that there are mainstream people or mainstream media folks who said the same thing and said, hey, when you get the shot, the virus stops with you. It's your civic duty to go get this shot. And then we had people in media saying things like, hey, this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And then when it was at its peak, they started saying things like, you know what, we need to start socially shunning the unvaxxed. These jerks who aren't getting vaccinated, we need to start ostracizing them. And I'm not exaggerating. Those of you guys who were around, you may remember some of this stuff floating around in the media. Now, that is very, very powerful persuasion, because not only do you have many, many, many authority figures out there telling you not only should you get this, but you are a bad person if you don't. Now you have this picture in your mind of, ooh, Am I going to be ostracized from my family if I don't go participate in this mass movement to go get this particular treatment? And we all know that there are people who have lost family members and friends, not just to the illness itself, but they lost family and friends through the social fallout of falling on one side or the other of this particular conversation. It's a pretty tragic thing. My personal opinion is that I think a lot of the media figures went way too far. I don't think that they should have been telling people to ostracize people for going one way or the other. I think that they probably went a little too far in trying to ostracize people who were considering alternative treatments. They went very far, by the way, to push people to have bad feelings about certain alternative treatments about this. And in fact, some of the arguments that they were making against these alternative treatments were quite specious when they were dismissing things like ivermectin as horse dewormer, right? While that's true, it's a horse dewormer. It's like saying, hey, you're taking a horse dewormer for that. It's like saying to somebody who took an aspirin for a headache and saying, hey, you're taking a feline blood thinner for your headache, because that's what aspirin is. It's the same kind of dumb argument, right? It's an absurd thing to say, especially when, that particular drug has been prescribed to humans for different things in the doses of billions, and the safety profile was pretty high. Anyway, you can have your own opinions about that, but that was part of what was going on. That was part of the desire campaign. And then the action component of it, we went in and we started seeing all these things like, hey, go get your shot and get a free box of donuts, right? Go get your shot and maybe you won't lose your job. I know people that left the military because there was a mandate in the military to go get the shot. If you didn't get the shot, that was it. Your career was over. And there were a lot of people who were forced to do that. And if you did go get the shot, there were certain things you could do for a little while there that people who didn't get it were not able to do. So there were many, many stimuli for action in that campaign. Now, I'm not saying that this whole thing was orchestrated. I can't go into somebody's mind and say, this is what their intention was. It's a very hard thing to do, to know what's truly in someone's heart. Maybe it's unknowable, right? But I can look at the outside and say, it's very interesting that all of the marketing stuff still fits. Now, you could say that, hey, yeah, they were doing marketing for this, but it was all in the public interest. Okay, fair enough. Maybe that was in fact the case. And there were certainly people involved in this whole thing that had that particular feeling. I know a lot of people who were very pro the vaccine, pro the mask mandates and all of that, I know them well enough to know that, like, hey, yeah, they're genuinely good people who were concerned for the well-being of others. And if you are of that particular persuasion, which I would hope most people are, it would be very easy to get caught up in that, and also to feel very self-righteous about the way you feel about it. But you got to remember, there are people on the other side of it who are also feeling very self-righteous about their side of it, and who are also thinking that what they were doing is for not only their interest, but for the best interest of everyone, because they thought, hey, wait a minute, maybe these treatments, maybe these particular measures are not the best thing for people. Maybe they're doing more harm than good. Most people were thinking that's what they were doing throughout this whole thing, whether they were, anti-vax, pro-vax, whatever that actually even means. Wherever they fell on this, most people felt that the way that they were communicating to people was the best way that they could to protect themselves, to protect the people that they care about, and to look out for everyone's best interest. I think probably very few of the people out there were thinking, hey, you know what? Let's go out there and let's be mean to people. Now, were there people that were just going along with things because they were going along with groupthink? 100%, you know that exists, right? And you know that had to factor in with some of the people some of the time. Were there people that had individual self-interests that were being served through their actions to get people to take the vax or not take the vax? 100%, you have to know that was at play, right? Some of the people that could profit from the vaccine, of course, there had to be people engaging in self-interest and behaving in a way that would support their self-interests on some level throughout that whole thing. And on the other side of it, were there people out there selling things that were alternatives to the vaccine? Yeah, you bet there were probably lots of people out there who were kind of like, let me profiteer by selling alternatives to this, and let me scaremonger the dangers of the vaccine. I don't think that's everybody who was concerned about the vaccine saying that. I was not involved in any way, shape, or form in any alternative to the vaccine product and selling marketing. I certainly had people wanting to consult with me on those types of things, but I did not sell anything like that myself. That was kind of a line I felt like, I don't know if I want to get involved in that, right? Even though I felt like, hey, there's probably nothing wrong with helping people find ways to recover, right? But a line I wouldn't cross is say, therefore, really amp up the potential dangers of the vaccine. I don't think that would be a line I would want to cross, right? Although, I don't know, it's interesting. We all think that we have these moral boundaries that we will and will not cross. And when we talk to people, we are all projecting kind of a mask to society, are we not? And we want to convince ourselves that we are consistent with that mask. And sometimes we confuse that mask with the reality of what we are on the inside. And we talk as if we are not deeply conflicted people, as all people are, as all humans are, who have positive intentions and sometimes negative intentions. Every single person has got an angel and a devil on their shoulders, if you will, telling them to do certain things that might cause harm or do good things for people. And sometimes we listen to both of those influences. And sometimes our behaviors are influenced by both of those things in ways that we're not even conscious of. So I think all of us can be impacted by this. We can all behave in ways that are outside of our publicly projected mask character, and we may not even realize that we're doing it. We may not even realize that we're doing it. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to look at some of the questions. We've got another persuasion formula here that we can look at this through. We can look at the Bencivenga persuasion equation. This is a copywriting formula from the great Gary Bencivenga, one of the greatest copywriters of all time. In fact, Gary Halbert himself said, people talk about Gary Bencivenga as the greatest copywriter of all time. And even I have a hard time denying that. That's Gary Halbert who said that. And Gary Halbert would not give such praise very lightly, I hope to tell you. So just to let you know what an amazingly respected copywriter Bencivenga is, we'll get into that formula here in a second. Let me take a look at some of the comments that we've got here. Brian Toberman said, so the choices were take a vaccine that doesn't work or take a fake vaccine that doesn't work. Yay, us. It's an interesting way to analyze it, right? George Holmes says the vax marketing worked worldwide. Yeah, it sure seems to have. If you believe the numbers, I believe, and fact check me on this, it is my understanding that it was the most profitable pharmaceutical campaign in history. Whatever you think about that, you got to ask yourself, if it was in fact the most profitable pharmaceutical campaign in history, could there have at least been some financial incentive somewhere throughout that whole thing? I think it would be a little naive to say that there wasn't some of that going on at the very least. Dale Donald says the MK Ultra hypothesis shows they have your attention and interest. They made you have a desire and take action. They were not able to direct your desire and what action you took. That's an interesting observation. Vasily Vargas says, I got it from Grandpa. I'm sure a lot of people did. Is it true that they put some COVID patients up in some old folks' homes? I heard that happened. I don't know that that's true. That's, you hear these things on the internet and sometimes you wonder, is that true? And you don't have time to go validate those things. It seemed to me that was legit. I don't know if that was true or not. Maybe you guys can fact check that and bring some primary source information about it. Craig Meager says, the whole vaccine fraud makes all your knowledge a million times more valuable. Health is wealth. Certainly is. Well, let's go to the Bencivenga persuasion equation, guys. Let's see if this applies to what happened with this particular vaccine. So the first thing is urgent problem. I think it's pretty easy to see that we had a fairly urgent problem with that particular situation. Now, I have heard some people say that it wasn't as urgent as they say. Now, early on, I went out and I did a podcast with an old dear friend of mine who is fairly high up in the frontline mainstream medical system. And I'm not going to say his name, even though we did this podcast together. I think he'd be cool with it. I have nothing but love and respect for this guy. He gave me a firsthand account that he was saying, hey, man, my feeling is that the way that they're presenting this to the world is that's what I'm observing in the emergency rooms. So this guy had a lot of direct access to frontline critical care. And that's what he was saying. Now, I also spoke to people that were involved in the FLCC community. There is a group of frontline critical care doctors and nurses and various health professionals who were espousing the use of certain alternatives. You could go to their website. I think it's FLCC something. You can look it up, and they had a protocol for this particular thing. If you type the C word in and FLCC protocol, you can see that there's a PDF where they said, hey, actually, here is a treatment that we can all attest as frontline critical care workers was working with the people that we are treating. Now, a lot of those same people were saying that there's this thing called the VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. And they were saying that a lot of the information that they were inputting into the VAERS system wasn't showing up. So I had people from the mainstream side telling me, hey, I believe you should follow their advice. I think it's happening the way that they're saying on the news. My observations are that this isn't just a flu, and that you should follow their advice in the way that it should be treated. Then I had other people telling me, no, that's not the case at all. We're getting people, we're giving them these alternative treatments. We're getting better results with these alternatives. And we know that the vaccines are causing adverse events. And we believe that suddenly the influenza numbers are dropping. So why is that? Because, and what their claim to me was that the influenza numbers were getting conflated with COVID, and that a lot of the deaths that were reported as attributable to COVID weren't necessarily attributable to COVID. It's like, you know, if you have the flu, but you also have a heart attack, did you die of the flu? This is their argument. Okay. And I'm not saying this is the case. I'm saying I talk to a lot of people and I want to look at the world through all of these different lenses and then make my own informed decision based on, you know, the information that I can see and what I'm hearing from people, and trust my own eyes and ears and trust my own instincts. I kind of feel like I want to resist emotional pressure. When people start saying things to you like, you're a bad person if you don't see it the way I do. Now I'm kind of like, you know what? I kind of want to give you an FU when you say that to me. I don't want to respond to that because I know that that's not logic or reason. I know that that is what somebody who studies logic and reason would call a fallacious argument. If your argument is you're a bad person, you're dumb, you're just not smart enough, you should listen to the authority figures, well, that's not really an argument. One of the greatest scientists of all time, Richard Feynman, said, science is the belief in the fallibility of experts, right? He was very much not a trust the science kind of guy. He was very much not a trust the experts kind of guy. He was a guy who was saying, hey, science is a process, and somebody coming in and you know, trying to use their authority as a mic drop, that's not really how science works. That's an appeal to authority. So when I start seeing those things, I'm kind of like, well, why are you doing that? If you've got logical, scientific, reasonable, rational arguments, why don't you use those? Now, there is a good answer for that, by the way. One thing you will find when you get deep into marketing, persuasion, propaganda, and by the way, it's kind of all the same thing. Yes, there are lines that are crossed in, you know, hardcore propaganda and in cult building that I think might distinguish healthier uses of these different forms of persuasion, but it's the same psychological phenomena at play. And one of the things you will come to understand very, very quickly if you make any kind of a study in this is that people make decisions with emotion and justify those decisions with logic. And knowing that, you've got to get the emotional decision first. And how do you get the emotional decision? You get it with logical fallacies. You get it by appealing to the group, by appealing to emotion, by appealing to authorities. And we can, you know, break out, you know, any number of different heuristics that humans use as snap decision shortcuts to make decisions. And if you believe in your heart that as somebody who is in a position of power, that you need to get the world to go along with you, you got to understand, you probably got some PR guys telling you, hey, the logic and reason arguments aren't going to work with the huddled masses. You got to scare them. You got to isolate them and make them feel like they're not one of us if they don't do this. Now, I'm not saying that was the right thing to do, but I am saying I want to see it from as many lenses as possible. I'm not going to jump to conclusions and go, oh, I heard this, this, and this, therefore it's all a psyop, or therefore these guys are all tinfoil hat wearers. I'm not going to jump to those conclusions because I don't know what's in their mind. I think most people are trying to do their best to do their best, whatever that is. And there were a lot of people who had to do some things that they felt were going against the grain, but were actually in their minds and in the minds of a lot of people being brave on both sides of this thing. If you could really divide it down to two sides, I think there's a lot more nuance than that. But we certainly had an urgent problem getting back to the formula, did we not? Or at least we had the belief. We created the belief that there was an urgent problem. And then we want to have a unique promise. So this is where it gets interesting. So if you want to present the vaccine as a unique promise, you need to marginalize the alternatives, do you not? So if you look at Rogan, when he went out there and he got the monoclonal antibodies, he got the ivermectin, he got all these things as treatments, and then there were concerted efforts to make him look dumb for doing that, even though he went and got what seems like pretty first-class medical care. Not everybody could afford the monoclonal antibodies. Not everybody could afford the human prescribed ivermectin, right? He did all of that stuff. It seems like CNN, for example, very specifically went out of their way to make him look bad. Now, why would they do that? I'm not going to go in and ascribe an intention into their hearts. I don't know. But to me, it was pretty suspicious. It was like, wow, that's a really lame argument to say he's eating horse dewormer, that dum-dum. Wow, look at these dum-dums over here taking the horse dewormer. That's kind of a lowbrow, dumb argument, if you ask me. Does that mean that the people making that argument had bad intentions? I don't know, but it wasn't a good argument. I'm pretty solid on that. And I do know that if you want to present the solution that just so happened to be the most profitable pharmaceutical campaign of all time, if you want to make that a unique promise, you certainly want to do your best to show that all the alternatives are not part of the solution, right? Has to be unique. There are no degrees of uniqueness. If you understand the word unique, it's either unique or it's not. And you want to be able to state the best case you can for the uniqueness of the thing you're trying to sell. Now, the next thing, unquestionable proof. Well, I don't think there is any such thing as unquestionable proof, but it certainly seems like if we were in the business of selling vaccines, we would certainly want to get people to buy into the idea that the proof that we're presenting is in fact unquestionable, because it's the science, as if science were some monolithic thing. It's like people believe like, oh, there is a universal hall of records where there is a list of all of the sciences, all of the truths, right? It's not really like that. You can dive deep into scientific journals, go into Google Scholar and look at the research reports, and you can see that it's a conversation happening, right? And none of these things are mic drops, because we know that throughout history, there are things that we thought were truths, like hardcore, unquestionable truths that we did discover later were in fact not fully correct. And in fact, the central dogma of biology itself, we know now with the discovery of epigenetics, that central dogma was not quite the dogma we thought it was. There was not the one-to-one relationship between genotype and phenotype that we thought. Look, dive into the Human Genome Project and find out what they discovered, and find out how disappointing that was on some levels. And then find out how, hey, wait a minute, the Lamarck Darwin argument wasn't as, wasn't the mic drop that we thought it was. A lot of us were taught in school Lamarck was proven to be wrong, but we know now that to a certain extent, what he was saying was right. Your behavior can, in fact, affect the traits that are passed on to your offspring. Look into it. Okay. I'll leave that up to you. But if we want to create the patina of unquestionableness, if we want to create that impression, we need to make it seem like you can't question the experts. You can't question the science, as if there is only like one the science you can do. There's a lot of people making all sorts of observations, and there are all sorts of different types of evidence, and all of them have their different strengths and weaknesses. I don't think we're doing humanity any service by telling people that science is a lot simpler than it is in actuality. I don't think that that raises the consciousness of people in any way, but that's me. Now, user-friendly proposition. There was certainly a user-friendly proposition, and was there not? All you got to do is just go get the shot. You know, one of our presidents said, go get the shot and you won't die. It's simple. Just go get the shot. It takes a couple minutes, right? You might get free donuts. You're going to face less social ostracism if you do it. Just takes a second. They're just going to jab a needle in your arm and pump some fluid in there. Simple. It's user-friendly. Very, very easy. You only have to get it once. That's what they were saying in the beginning. Now, you can make arguments about, hey, it mutated. That justifies the boosters, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, there's more nuance. I don't want to be mad at anybody, man. You know what? I have seen human behavior enough from so many different sides, in and out of the military, in and out of organizations that I know are not always operating in people's self-interest. I know that organizations, much in the same way that humans can put on a social mask and project that mask and feel internally conflicted inside because that mask does not necessarily line up with how they feel on the inside. I know that organizations are involved in that too. And there are sociopaths in all of those areas. Those people exist. Certainly not the majority, but I know that there are people in there that are doing that. And this is one of the things we do, isn't it? We see some people who seem to very clearly have bad intentions or not really care too much about the outcomes for other people. And we might see them in a group that's not our group. And we go, aha, my group good, their group bad. Well, I promise you, there are almost certainly a few of those sociopathic characters in your group too. There aren't many things I would bet on, but I would make a pretty steep wager about that. I don't know what your group is, but I'm pretty sure you got some sociopaths, psychopaths, NPD, however you want to label them, whatever the DSM is going to label them this week. You got some people in there who aren't actually thinking about self or about what's good for everybody. You got people who are like, you know what? Everybody else is manipulatable. I'm going to consciously make decisions to manipulate people. That's the way a lot of people think. There are some people who do that. I don't think that's the vast majority of people, but I do believe that people are doing that unconsciously. And in fact, most of us are persuading each other all the time. I think it would be hard to find an interaction with humans where there is not some level of persuasion afoot. And I think we're at the top of the half hour here. I'm going to just take a look here for some of the last questions and comments. Eliza says, within the framework of Bencivenga's persuasion equation, it seems that unquestionable proof is missing. Even today, I wouldn't consider it unquestionable proof, but I would consider evidence weighing heavily in one direction, and user-friendly proposition is questionable with respect to how friendly an injection is compounded with potential adverse events. How heavily do these weigh towards persuasion? Well, yeah, see, it's not a binary on-off switch, is it? Now, I would say epistemologically, we might want to question whether the notion of unquestionable proof is even a thing, right? That's that's something for you to meditate on your own. Celia here says, I think it's called PSYOPs now. Yeah, well, actually, PSYOPs is a branch of a larger information operations thing. Now, when I was in, there still are PSYOPs groups, but we're doing a lot more integrated work now in the military, and a lot of the individual disciplines are behaving in more integrated ways. But PSYOPs is certainly a thing. If you guys are not familiar with that, look into psychological operations in the military, and you will learn a lot of very useful things. Celia says, leading down a path to end results. Anything that brings fear, angst to an end result, question in alignment with who I am or not. That's a good measuring stick. Nicholas Roy says, science is a big nominalization, which is a type of generalization, and an NLP. Science is a method in 7 steps. It's always evolving. Yeah. If you guys are not familiar with that, what he is referring to there is in neurolinguistic programming. So, speaking to the people who founded NLP, a lot of people misunderstand NLP. They think that the tools are NLP. What NLP is a system of modeling that left a trail of tools, and they confuse the tools for NLP itself. So one of the famous tools that was part of the trail left behind by the study of neurolinguistic programming, or the practice of neurolinguistic programming, came from the study of the hypnotist Milton Erickson. They were trying to find out, hey, can we deconstruct how this guy is so effective? He was a hypnotist who could turn people's lives around in one conversation. And if you could ever watch this guy in action, it's magical seeing what this guy did. The NLP guys, Richard Bandler and John Grinder, and then some of the other people, peripheral to that, like Robert Dilts and whatnot, they were all deconstructing these things. And in the first books of neurolinguistic programming, one of the things that they talked about was this idea of nominalization. Anyway, we can do a whole separate episode about that if you guys are curious. Ryan and I have been talking about diving deeper into some of the more sophisticated persuasion tools. If you guys are interested in that, send an email to support@simpleology.com or leave it in the comments, either inside the Simpleology portal or elsewhere, and we will bring that up. And with that, we are at the top of the hour, and I will wish all of you guys a beautiful day or night wherever you are. And before I say I will see you on the next live, I just want to ask you to consider, do you have any relationships that were torn apart because of this? And do you think that maybe having this conversation with them might allow you to heal it? Because I think that, in my opinion, knowing that technology is advancing at this exponential pace, and I think that technology is an amplifier of our abilities as humans, both for good and for evil, I think that we kind of all need to figure out how to get along and maybe have, I wish I had better language for this, some kind of an elevation of consciousness where we're not wishing bad things upon each other. And I think that kind of starts with our one-to-one interaction with people, especially the people that you really deeply disagree with. Because I bet if you get down with them on a human level and say, hey, you know what? I love you and I want to have a good relationship with you. I mean that in earnest. Can I have a conversation with you? Can we try our best not to yell at each other and be okay if we do yell at each other a little bit, and get past that and understand that what's really important is that we kind of stick together, even if we disagree. Because all of our desires are going to be amplified with technology. AI is probably the easiest way to see this. This is something I've been writing about for decades now. We're all kind of seeing this play out in real time. And I will leave you with that thought, and I will see you guys on the next live hangout. And Ryan is going to be back with me on the next one when he comes back from his trip. Take care, guys. Boom.